with you, man. Get the other record. Damn.
There she scurries. Hi, friends. This is the Disenfranchised Podcast, a podcast all about those franchises of one, those films that fancy themselves full-fledged franchises before falling flat on their face after the first film, except for when it's not. And this is one of those times. After recently completing our recent episode of Straight Up on...
Damn. 30 seconds. Okay. Fuck a
Pew,
duck,
pew,
Steven.
pew.
Fuck a duck.
No, thank you. What do I look like? Theah Thompson? Hey! We are back with another episode of Straight Up, a horror-themed edition, as this one does end right at the end of Spooky-thon. And what is Straight Up, you say? Well, perhaps I'd better hand that off to my co-host, Tucker. Tucker, explain to us the premise of your show.
Straight Up is straight up when there's 5 Thursdays in a month. And as you know, if you've heard this podcast before, we drop our episodes on Thursdays. So when there's an extra Thursday in the month, I get to just kind of go off format and talk about a movie that I love that I think is maybe underseen. Not necessarily underappreciated, because some of them are stinkers that I just happen to love. But I'd say underseen because I think they would scratch a certain itch for some people who maybe have not been exposed to them.
Yeah.
I just want to share these little gems, these diamonds in the rough that I've found over my years of combing the sale bins at mom and pop video stores, all the way to finding the lowest rated thing on Tubi to watch. I try to find all the good stuff where you don't normally find it, and I found some rad shit. And that's what I want to do. That's what Straight Up's all about, is sharing shit with people that I think is rad. I think the shit is rad, and you're rad, and all the people are rad. That's what Straight Up's about. It's about the people, Steven. It's about the people.
Oh, and I'm Stephen Foxworthy. Hi.
But you never asked that again, Steven.
No, I'll probably ask it again. Are you kidding me? That was fine.
Damn.
Okay. Are you trying to get kicked off the show? Because it's not going to happen.
No.
I need a co-host.
Oh,
okay.
Really hard not to cough.
All right. Well, then, hey, we're and Tucker, because I did impose one restriction on you this time, which was that we needed the Straight Up for this month to be a horror film, and you are an acknowledged horror fan. You do like horror films.
I am.
So what horror film, for those who decided to click on this without reading the episode title or description, what film have you selected for us tonight?
Well, if you ask the director, and by that I mean if you listen to the commentary on the Shout Blu-ray, he insists several times adamantly that it's not a horror film, but nah, dude, it straight up is.
It is.
We watched 1983's Of Unknown Origin, starring Peter Weller in his first leading role.
Yes, 1983's Of Unknown Origin, directed by the man who gave us Cobra, George P. Cosmatos.
And Tombstone.
And Tombstone.
Come on.
But we've not covered Tombstone. We've covered Cobra.
He was kind of a fixer after this. Like, he got hired on to movies that were maybe falling apart and needed somebody to bring them back together and put them out. And I would say from the movies that I've seen that he's done that with, First Blood Part 2, Cobra, Tombstone, he's pretty good at it.
Yeah. I will say Tombstone, the superior Wyatt Earp film from 1993. For sure. And not just because one has Kurt Russell and the other has Kevin Costner. Just in general. Just in general. But he also directed future episode of this podcast, Leviathan, from 1989. we're going to cover that at
That's
some
true.
point too.
Oh, I can't wait. I saw that when I was a kid, but I haven't seen it since. I remember really enjoying it. It had like kind of a TV movie vibe.
Okay. Well, you know what? There's another straight up for next October. Maybe you slate it in there.
Nah, it's already on the schedule, man. It's nah. You
All
said
right.
it's on the you said
It
it's already
is.
on the list. Like
There is one
I go
already
off
scheduled
format.
there is one already scheduled for next October, but yeah.
Also, not for nothing, the son of the director of this film, directed Mandy, dude. Everybody loves Mandy. It's a big deal. People love that movie.
She came and she gave without taking.
Yeah.
But you sent her away, Tucker.
Yeah, well, you know. Yeah.
I can think of one person who does not like Mandy, and that is a friend of the show, Mike Snoonian from the Pod and the Pendulum.
Really? That's interesting.
He is an avowed, unabashed, out loud and proud Mandy hater.
Okay.
Does not like that movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I saw it and thought it was really fucking weird.
Look, I did not like it as much as most people who liked it, but I do like it. Okay. Jimmy fucking loves it.
People love it. Like, people who love it.
Yeah, and I get why. And like, I feel like if it had come out 15, 20 years ago, I'd be a much bigger fan of it.
That makes sense.
But like, my sensibilities have changed, and like, kind of, if it's not grandfathered in, some shit is just a bit too much for me. I don't know. I don't care if it sounds like I'm becoming a pussy. Maybe I am. Like, I don't know. Like, whatever. I don't care. I'll own it.
You don't care. Yeah, you'll own it. One thing I will say is that I love Andrea Riceborough, and she's really good in that movie.
Dude, yeah. I think everybody's really good in that movie.
Yeah. But speaking of this movie, 1983's Of Unknown Origin, based on the novel The Visitor by Chauncey G. Parker III, and starring, as you mentioned, Peter Weller, the great Peter Weller, RoboCop, Mr. Robert Kopp himself as
Mr. Buckaroo Banzai.
Buckaroo Banzai. Jennifer Dale, Lawrence Dane, Kenneth Walsh, the great Maury Chaykin. Fucking love that dude. Louis Legrand, Shannon Tweed, and many others. Tucker, what a cast. I'll let you say it this time.
Golly, Steven, what a picture. I love this movie. I really, really like it. I like it so love this movie. And not for the reasons that I think the people who really get into this like it. I like this movie because I really like the way that it moves along. Like, the cinematography and the editing and the pacing all work together so well for me that it's like one of those rides where you can just sit back and like relax and take it all in, because they just kind of pull you along the whole thing. Like, there's no point in this movie where I'm like, oh, I need to pick up my phone, or like, oh, I should probably go pee or something. I'm locked in the whole time, even on scenes that you would think would be boring, like the office stuff. Just the way it's shot. I love the themes of like the reflections. There's so many shots or reflections, whether it's through a door or a mirror. There's I just love how this movie looks, and I love the way it moves. And of course, I love Peter Weller. And I also love the macro lens or the micro lens they use for the rat. It makes it look so weird and like so much scarier.
All those close-up shots of the rat, and so I mean, basically Moby Dick with a rat.
Yeah,
I mean, when you get right down to it, it's Moby Dick with a rat.
Yeah.
I will just say, this is the first time I've ever seen this movie. Had honestly don't think ever heard of this movie until you suggested we put on. And honestly, this was kind of a last minute addendum. This was within the past month that you selected this one. One thing I will say,
because I think it was the Cobra episode, maybe. Didn't we talk about it on the Cobra episode?
I think we briefly talked about it, maybe mentioned it, but this didn't get added to the list for Straight Up until like a month ago.
Yeah, because you were like, there's a Halloween Straight Up, and I'm like, all right, give me 2 minutes and I'll find something. I just like got down on my knees and like looked at all my Blu-rays. I got to the O's and I was like, whoop, there it is.
And there it is. You held
there
it up.
There it actually is. Hey, I love that cover too. The family portrait and the
with the rat scratch down it.
Yes, I love also the juxtaposition of the opening credits of this film, because you don't get that again until probably the third act. Like it goes hard with that music in the opening
Mhm.
credits, and you just see the windows of the brownstone. Also love that fade in. Golly, Duke. If I ever made a movie, it would probably look a lot like this movie because I
Yeah,
love how much it looks
I believe that.
or how good it looks. But I love that music during the credits, and then just whoop! Oh, here we are. We're waking up. There's Shannon Tweed. Um,
There is Shannon
introducing
Tweed. It's
introducing
her
Shannon Tweed.
first ever film.
Yeah,
Shannon Tweed
yeah, dude.
right off the gate. I think it's worth asking. How did you come to this movie? Where did you discover this one? Obviously, I discovered it from you, but how did you get to this one? How did we get here, Tucker?
Well, do you straight up Mimby when Netflix used to be a DVD mailing service?
I do, in fact, memby that.
Well, I was on my desktop computer sometime around 2005 or 6,
That tracks.
and I sorted films starring Peter Weller on the Netflix website.
Oh, are you a fan of his?
Yeah, for a long ass time actually. Yes.
I want to put a pin in Peter Weller. I want to come back to Peter Weller. Keep going.
Okay. Um and I saw this cover, a little thumbnail, pixel thumbnail like this big. And I was like, "Ooh, what's that?" And like there wasn't a description or anything. So I was like, "Put that on my list, on my queue," as they called it in those days.
Yes, the queue.
And it came in my mailbox, and I watched it, and I've loved it pretty much ever since. And when Shout Factory put out this Blu-ray, I was very excited because there is a commentary on it, and there are new interviews with the screenwriter and one of the producers. And it does say a 2K scan from the interpositive, which I don't know what that is, but sometimes it sucks.
Mm,
This scan, sometimes it looks pretty all right. It never looks great.
mm.
Sometimes it looks pretty all right, and sometimes it just looks like trash. So I'm hoping one day when like Arrow or Shout or somebody, Vinegar Syndrome, if the universe really hates us, puts this out in 4K, I'm hoping they get the original negative or some better source
Right.
than whatever an inner positive is.
Yeah, that is a
I'm not
bummer.
complaining. It looks better than the DVD that I saw most of the time. There
Well,
are a
that's
few times
good.
where I'm like, "Oh, I'll bet the DVD looked better than that actually." But 90% of the time, it looks better than the DVD did.
All right. Well,
And
that's something.
I'm not so much complaining. I'm more saying when they do a 4K, let's maybe just maybe find a different source. You
Fair
know?
enough. Fair enough.
Well,
Right on.
it's still available though. It's in print. Go buy it if you like this movie. You can rent it on all the rental places streaming.
I was gonna say you can rent it for like $3 on YouTube. Like that's how I saw it, and had some money in my Google Wallet, and was just like, hey, why not?
There it is.
So threw three of my hard earned dollars down on that, and you know what? I watched it. This is a movie I watched.
Warner Brothers thanks you. Hopefully,
Mhm.
Peter Weller's residual check thanks you.
Yeah, I can I just tell you one of my favorite old school logos is
Ooh,
that
yeah.
Warner Brothers logo with just the three lines that make up the W.
Two
God, it's
lines
so
and a
good.
dot.
That's it.
Fantastic.
So fucking perfect. I love it. I watched The Conversation, Francis Ford Coppola's Conversation
Yep.
last weekend, and that's got that logo in it too. And I fucking love that 70s 80s Warner Brothers logo, man. So good. It's that is
It's
probably
good.
my number one favorite logo of a film company for sure.
I'm partial to the Columbia logo myself, but I get what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, man. There's some good logos out there. There's some iconic logos, but that's the
yeah.
one for me. And Warner Brothers has some really good ones too, but that's it. That's the one. For me, that's the one.
Best combination of music and logo goes to Universal in the 90s, though. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Tucker. And this
Sure.
is a very serious question that I just kind of
Okay.
want to know the answer to.
Uh-huh.
We've talked about Peter Weller on this podcast a few times.
Yeah.
When did you first experience Peter Weller? And when did you know you were a fan? Was it right away? Was it something you had to build toward? Like, give me your Weller history, because we first talked about him in the Buckaroo Banzai episode. We mentioned him ad infinitum in the RoboCop remake episode. Like, what's your Weller history, man?
Well, I think I
It
was
was so dumb. I don't know why I fucking laughed at that.
Thank
What the
you. Thank
hell?
you. Well, you were taking a drink. That's why I took the shot. If you hadn't been taking a drink, I wouldn't have even said it. Like,
I'm just trying to
honestly.
enjoy my old fashioned over here, and you're just making
No,
that very
dude.
difficult.
No.
My secret
So-
is that instead of a sugar cube, I use maple syrup, and I also add a little bit of mezcal, so it gives it like a smoky flavor.
Wow. Or as Roger Miller calls it, maple serple.
Cheers.
Yeah. Yeah. So Peter Weller, I first kind of knew. So I was a film fan when I was a teenager, probably from the
Okay.
time I was 14. I started getting into horror movies and such, and kind of becoming a cinephile, a genre focused cinephile. But I did go outside that box sometimes. But the first time that I really got into the behind the scenes stuff, like knowing who the actors and the directors and everyone was, and like getting movies just because a particular director directed it or there was a specific cinematographer or something, was when I worked at Hollywood Video. I worked at Hollywood Video at 106th and Meridian in Carmel, across from the Mire that's out there. Well, I mean, kind of catty cornered to it. But anyway, there was this dude that worked there whose name was Joe. And we kind of bonded over some of the modern films that we enjoyed, like Clerks and stuff like that. In fact, we used to watch Clerks at work at night, and like if a customer would come in, we'd just pause it.
Sure.
And then like as soon as they left, we'd just turn it back on. And also depending on how cool the person looked. Like if we thought the person could handle it, we'd just leave it on.
There you go.
And we were never wrong.
That's a handy skill to have, to be able to read someone that immediately.
We were never wrong, but he got me into like really paying attention to the people behind the scenes in the film. And that's when I kind of started recognizing a lot of people that I was already a fan of. They kind of became people to me, which sounds weird, but like
I mean, it makes
weren't
sense
just
on some level, right?
yeah. And I don't know, that's when I kind of became aware that I wanted to watch films that were directed by the people who directed other films I liked, and I wanted to watch films who had specific actors in them. And so that's kind of when I found out who he was. And I couldn't really tell you what films that it was that got me hip to him, but it was definitely Buckaroo Banzai that made me become a fan, which was, as I said in the Buckaroo Banzai episode, I came across way too fucking late in my life, because it's a film I definitely would have enjoyed as a child as well. So yeah, that's kind of how I became a Peter Weller fan. And then, he just started showing up in stuff. I'm going to have to go to his IMDb to sort of, because I've got sick person brain right now. To anyone who can't figure out from the way I'm talking, I'm very ill. So at this point, let's see. At this point, I would have seen writer, producer, okay, actor. I definitely would. Oh, I definitely would have seen Naked Lunch at that point.
That's
RoboCop.
a wild one.
Well, I was into wild shit, and also like I got in on the Criterion Collection early.
That's true.
Like
Okay, that's
the
fair.
Criterion version of Fear and Loathing is what got me hip to Criterion at all. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, for me,
then
it was, what the fuck is this, and why does it cost so much?
yes, and then when Naked Lunch came out, I was like, this just looks really weird. And back then, if you just had to buy something, you know, or rent it
Right.
from the video store, but you had to find a video store that actually had old movies
Mm-hmm.
more than just the classics, quote unquote.
Right.
So it was a lot harder. You couldn't just like get on your streaming service or rent it somewhere streaming. It was a lot harder to really indulge yourself in
And that's
entire
what kids today
filmographies.
don't understand,
Think
man.
think about your 2020 watch of all those movies, Steven. How many of those would you have watched if streaming did not exist?
Very
Like
few.
not even a third of them.
I'm gonna tell you one thing right now. The movie Rampage, William Friedkin's Rampage, a movie
Yep.
I watched during 2020, is impossible to watch legally. That movie is literally impossible. I mean, I could probably buy a VHS tape of
Yeah.
it, but even that is out of print and costs insane amounts of money. Like, that movie is impossible to watch legally.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was also an issue back then too. There was a lot of stuff out of print. Like if you weren't a cult classic or like a well-beloved film of the past, you weren't getting multiple video releases. Your movie came out on video, that's it.
And
That's
that's
it.
why there was such an insane bootleg market that kind of thrived at like fan conventions, like Comic Cons and like Gen Con, Dragon Con, like all those conventions there was a huge bootleg market at those. That's how the Star Wars Holiday Special got so well circulated. Like, some movies just did not exist, and so they had to be bootlegged for anyone to be able to watch them at all.
Well, then you had stuff like TV movies that were
Mhm.
very hard to get on physical media. Also, most of the time in the early days, direct to video meant rental only.
Correct.
So unless you're buying it used from a video store,
You're
you're
not
not going to
buying
find
it.
it. You're not going to
Right.
find it at Target, you know. And you'd get a lot of that stuff at the horror conventions and stuff too back in the day. My first copy of 1989's Dr. Caligari. Well, actually, not my first copy. My first digital copy was a DVD that I bought that was a VHS scan of a VHS I already admittedly had, but VHS, it deteriorates over time, so I wanted something that would be preserved that I could actually see after watching it 100 times.
A
So, yeah.
future episode of Straight Up, I'm sure.
Yeah, we got to build up to that one. That's another one where Brett demands an 11 on the weirdness scale. That almost beat out
Hey,
22 minutes. Nice.
it's
Get that in
extra
there.
fun when you do it to yourself.
I mean, it's significant to what I'm saying, so I have to. What am I going to do?
Right.
What am I
I
going
don't
to
know.
do, Steven?
I mean, I could just say
What am I going to do?
over
God.
and over again.
Son of a beast, Steven.
Honestly, I think it's a little more fun to watch you get all riled up when I say it. That is the most fun.
Golly, Duke.
The best is when Brett says it. That's the best.
Yeah. That was a fun episode to edit, I'll tell you what.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Dr. Caligari will be here soon. Hopefully, sometime in the
Ish.
next 2 years.
I was gonna say we've got a good chunk of those straight ups scheduled. In fact, the next opening is that's not even an opening anymore because it's that the next opening is April 2026.
Nice. Fantastic. That's great. That is great. Why were we talking about? Oh, you were saying, yeah. Anyway, yeah. The market and the watching it and having to go to the library and get on the waiting list.
Yeah. Oh God.
To get a 10-year-old VHS that you could barely see. I'm looking at you, Day of the Dead.
Oh my God.
I'm looking at you. I waited 3 months for that to come to my library on a VHS that barely fucking played. Oh man. Though there was a charm to those days, I tell you what.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like a kind of a victory when you found a really good movie because like I said, you either had to buy it blind, which is what started this whole conversation finally
Right.
coming for full circle.
Full circle
You
back.
had to buy it blind or you had to rent it, or somebody had to be like, "Oh, yo, that's good," and still you're like, "Will I like it though?"
Do I trust this person's taste enough to actually go out and commit time and money to this thing?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a crapshoot back then. It was a
Totally.
lot of my early DVD collection full of shit that I just did not like because I bought it
Mm-hmm.
blind.
There you go.
Then again, there was some diamonds in the rough though, for sure. Stuff like
Absolutely.
stuff like this though, in a Netflix DVD delivery sense.
Right.
Stuff like Roman Coppola's CQ, to name another, that I
Mm.
bought blindly because I was like, "This is weird. Never heard of this." Buying it. And Jason Schwartzman in it. So that's probably what sold me. I was like, "What? Jason Schwartzman? Okay."
You do like Jason Schwartzman though.
I do. And around that time, I was way into Rushmore, so I was like, "Yeah, dude."
Those Coppolas do love casting their family and shit.
Yeah. Oh, and that was right off the heels of Slackers as well,
Mm.
which not Richard Linklater's Slacker. That's a completely different film. I'm
Very
talking
different
about
movie.
the gross out college sex comedy Slackers, starring Devon Sawa, uh, what's her nuts from that '70s show, Big Pete from The Adventures of
I was
Pete and
gonna say
Pete,
that's the one with Big Pete. Yeah.
and Jason Schwartzman as the most unhinged character in cinematic history. This movie is not good. It is not good. Some of the jokes are really good. This movie is not good, but Jason Schwartzman deserves multiple Oscars for that performance. Multiple. They need to create specific Oscars for that performance.
Okay. Good to know.
For most like cool Ethan in Slackers, it's Robert De Niro from fucking the one with the native people and the Leo's in it. He does that weird face the whole time. Killer's the Flower Moon. Yeah.
My favorite movie of last year.
He does that face the whole time though. It was almost distracting. Almost.
Nah, didn't bug me.
I mean, it worked for the performance. I'm not saying it was bad acting at all by any stretch of the imagination, but it just maybe it was a little much sometimes for me.
Fair enough.
Anyway. Straight anyway. Hey, Steven, do you think I'm thinking maybe are you thinking when I'm thinking about doing the plot right now? Is that what you're thinking?
That we should not and keep talking about other stuff?
If that's what you want to do.
No, was that what you were thinking? Because
No, I was thinking of doing the plot right now.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, let me then no, I'm not thinking what you're thinking, but let me go ahead and get
you're thinking it now.
I mean, you inceptioned that thought into my
as
head.
I suggested it to you.
I will say two famous fans of this film, John Waters, the great filmmaker, and
Stephen King, dude.
And Stephen King.
Yeah, that tracks. Both
yeah,
those.
Both really love this movie. Let's do the plot in 60 seconds, the part of the show where we, at the behest of the Coin of Justice, do recount the plot of this film in 60 seconds or less. I've got the coin at the ready. Tucker, go ahead and call it.
I'm calling it heads.
And it is heads, you son of a bitch.
I would have been fine either way. I'm not bothered either way.
Yeah, I had a feeling. This is your fucking movie, and I gotta
since technically I won the coin toss, I choose who does it. I'm still gonna choose you because you seem so put out by it.
I mean, I always have to do it, so I'm always put out by it.
Okay.
Coin hates me. I don't know what I've done to offend the coin, but
I've got 60 seconds on the official egg timer of the Disenfranchised podcast. When you start talking, I'll hit the button, dude.
Bart Hughes lives in New York. He's a mild-mannered investment banker. He's a Clark Kent, you might say. His family goes on vacation, and then he realizes there's a fucking rat in the house, and so he goes on this fucking tirade to try to kill the rat in Captain Ahab-esque fashion. He's calling like the repairman. He's calling exterminators. He's
30 seconds
throwing shit. He's like jamming a copy of Moby Dick against the ceiling, and just a bit of heavy-handed over the topness. Basically eventually gets to the point where he makes the most bizarre weapon of all time. He gets like fucking bad dreams about his family getting murdered by this fucking rat. The cat dies for some reason.
10 seconds.
And eventually he destroys his house, kills the rat. His family comes home immediately after, and he explains the damage by saying he had a party.
Time. That's That's a line that it took me a long time to warm up to.
Yeah,
Long time.
Tucker, I'm just going to be
Because
really honest with you. I don't
you
like the
didn't
ending
like
of this
this
movie.
movie. Oh,
I
you
didn't
didn't
like
like
the
the
ending of
ending?
this movie.
Okay, all right.
There's a lot I did not enjoy about this movie. My partner's not a fan of animal violence, so the idea that this movie centers around someone trying to kill a rat.
You saw the blurb, though. It says it. Even before the Humane Society made him do it, they were like, we wouldn't
Right.
dream
Oh, I
of
know.
harming an animal. We would, how dare you,
Oh,
basically,
I
they say in
know.
that blurb.
I know. And you can, I mean, and I think that's kind of the beauty of the way the film is shot, is it's shot in such, all the shots of the rat are in such extreme close up.
I love how it's shot. Yeah.
That you cannot, there's no even like hint of the idea that harm would come to this animal because everything's done in such close up
And
that
sometimes she's really cute.
sometimes
Sometimes I'm like, oh, that's kind of a cute rat. But then you
sometimes
see
you're
how
like, is
big
this
it
supposed to be
is
scary? Yeah.
when it jumps on his back, and you're like, yeah, that motherfucker is not cute anymore, actually. I take it all back.
And in those shots, it's
This
not
dude
real.
is 3 feet long. Like,
Yeah, in those shots,
36-inch rat.
very not real. Like
Yeah,
very
not real at all.
obviously fake rat in those shots. But yeah, like the idea that everything, like nothing works on this creature, but then you get to the end and I want there to be more of a loss for this guy. Like I want there to be kind of an Ahab-esque reckoning for this character. I don't like the fact that it seems like he gets off scot-free at the end.
Well, I mean, they do build up through the entire film how much time he spent personally restoring that house. So I think that might be kind of what they tried to do with that, because he destroys that fucking place. He, at the end of it, it's flooding. As he goes outside to meet his family, there are gallons of water flooding his house.
Right. And I mean, I guess it is the 80s, so materialism is kind of at its height.
This is a yuppie movie.
It's very much
a straight up
yuppie
movie. Yeah.
Like all the main characters in this movie are fucking yuppies.
Yeah, dude.
And Maury Chaykin plays like the dirtiest, grimiest yuppie of them all, and I fucking love Tucker. I'm gonna put a pin in it, but I'm gonna come back to Maury Chaykin because I love Maury Chaykin. Yeah. I cannot get enough of that guy. That man is amazing.
I'm into it.
Fucking My Cousin Vinny. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm not fucking My Cousin Vinny. I don't have a cousin Vinny, but the not fucking film My Cousin Vinny is amazing.
Dude, yeah. It's really good. Everybody loves that movie.
How can you not?
It's a cable classic.
It is 100%. But he, like, I mean, but the fact that it's loss of material wealth, like, and there's a moment where I think this film is going to have like actual human stakes. Like before I realized that the dream sequence where the kid is making cereal,
poison,
like, pouring rat poison into his cereal, where I'm like, holy shit, is this movie going to actually have stakes? And then no, it's a dream. And I'm just, that pissed me off, not because I wanted that child to die, but because like, then the movie would have had like some kind of, there would have been a consequence, like a tangible human consequence of this obsession that is so driven him and conquered him beyond just like material loss. And that, I think that's the part of it. And I think if this movie had been made 5 to 6 years later, we would have gotten that. But because this is like the height of the Reagan era, like this is like Reagan is elected in 80. So this is like coming up the end of Reagan's first term.
Yeah.
Like this is the height of Reagan era, like materialism. And the fact that that's the main loss of the film, I think fucking sucks.
Great double feature with American Psycho, by the way.
Oh, for sure.
And without I'd love to see a cut of this movie without any shots of the rat until the third act.
Correct.
I would love that. Make it an even better double feature with American Psycho, because is this guy fucking nuts?
Yeah.
Is this paired with all of like the reflections and everything that they do in like almost every shot? There's a reflection, or you're looking through a window with the reflection on it. Yeah. But the rat stuff looks so cool, though. I
love the rat POV stuff. Like early on, you get the rat POV stuff, and that is cool. Where you've got like that camera running through the sewer pipes and shit. Like that looks awesome.
It's like a slasher movie. That's why I think if if it weren't done so well, it would be a better movie without the rat stuff if it were left ambiguous. But because it's done so well, and because it's written by a guy who cut his teeth writing a slasher,
Right.
like, it makes complete fucking sense. And like, George, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. There's so much about this movie that it's a horror movie. I know you directed it. I don't mean to RIP, he dead. So like I'm talking to him in space or wherever he is, but
You got your Ouija board out, you're seancing it up.
like, look, dude, it's a horror movie. I'm sorry. It is. No, I wouldn't even say horror adjacent. It's a straight up monster movie.
It is.
It's a slasher movie and a monster movie. And
I mean, it's very reminiscent of something like Jaws, where there's this
yes.
kind of central animalistic antagonist that the whole movie is about, and it's kind of ruining everything. Like, it's Jaws meets Moby Dick, honestly, with a rat.
And it's the director says several times in the commentary that Jaws was a huge influence on him, especially when revealing and how much to show of the antagonist at certain times. As you noticed in the film,
It's evident.
like at first, like you'll just see a shadow of him, and then like maybe you'll see a close up of a foot, and like you see more and more of him as the film goes on, and then by the end he's jumping on the motherfucker.
Right.
And even then, it's very obscured. You never really like get a still shot on this motherfucker, like the full thing.
Right.
And that's why I love it. It's so ambiguous, which makes it so much scarier, I think, in the wider shots. Because you see him close up, but you don't really have much of an idea how big he is. And even in those quick times you see him on Peter Weller's back, there's not enough time. Like, your imagination is filling in so many blanks and making it so much scarier than it actually is. I like movies that do that.
You do.
I really do.
You really do.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of my imagination. That's why, like, people say the book's better than the movie. Of course it's better than every book is going to be better than the movie, because your imagination is tailored to you. You're going to make the best version of that in your head for you.
Exactly. And then that's kind of always what it is. But by the same token, like, there's that rule of film, which is show don't tell. And at some point, but again, I think that's where that is a success of this film, is at the end of the day, for all the hints at it and the size of it and the terrors that it does, it's a rat, it's an animal. And the fact that we see it shows us that there's nothing special about it outside of its size. It's a rat.
Yes, but they feed your imagination this whole movie, not just with the small little visual cues,
right?
But with the research, that whole dinner scene where he's talking about all this horrific shit that rats have done and survived. And he's like, the fucking plague wiped out a third of the earth. Like, not bombs, not guns, fucking rats.
Which, by the way,
setting
great dinner party conversation.
Yes,
instigating
while they're eating their mini hens or whatever the fuck they're eating, rich
Cornish
people
game
food,
hens,
I guess.
Yeah,
there you
Cornish
go.
Game hens, yeah. And the reactions of everyone at that table are so perfect.
Yeah,
fucking Maury Chaykin just eating in that movie, both physically and literally. Like,
but
literally and figuratively. I'm drunk. Shut up.
At the time of the filming of this film, everything that he says in this movie was considered to be fact. Now, there are some things that have been proven false, specifically that rats have no known origin.
Right.
At the time, like when they were writing this movie, they looked in the dictionary, and on rat, in the description, it said of unknown origin. And they were like, that's spooky. We don't know where those motherfuckers come from. It's 1980, and we don't know where these motherfuckers come from.
Let's make that the title of the movie.
Like, they came over on a boat from Iceland or whatever, but like, where'd they come from before that? Like, who knows?
Who knows?
Like, of course, now, like, we've figured that kind of stuff out with like computers and shit, because computers are rad. But yeah, I love how they build that up, because when you see so little of the rat in action, having all of that in your head the entire time just builds up the threat and just the unease. Every time he sits down in that house, I'm like, motherfucker, get up on the counter or something.
Right.
Have you seen this you are telling me that he's gonna kill you?
Have you seen a movie before?
Have you seen movies? He's in the hammock and that motherfucker gets the ceiling. Damn.
Mm,
This time it's personal,
this time it
Steven.
is
This time
personal.
didn't start out that way,
Nope.
but once he accidentally, mind you,
Mm-hmm.
dumped her babies down that grate, that's when it became personal.
Absolutely.
And she did it. Like, she scared him, and that's why he dropped him. Like, he wasn't trying to. Well, I mean, he probably would have
He
tried to get rid of
was.
them
Yeah.
in some way or another, but what happened to them was not something that he intentionally did.
Right. I feel like it wouldn't have gone any better, but there's that thing of an animal when they're young is attacked or threatened, or they feel that they're being placed in a threatening situation,
Mhm.
they will attack. Like, that's why they say don't mess with bear cubs. Like, if you see a bear
Yeah.
cub, just back off, because the
Many
mom's not
number
far.
of baby animals.
Right.
Do not fuck with them if they're wild.
No, do not fuck with wild baby animals. That is the official stance of the Disenfranchised podcast.
We
Do
stand by
not
it.
fuck with wild baby animals.
We stand by it.
We do. But no, that's 100% like it. It's and that, yeah, you're right. And then it becomes this kind of targeted attack, and it's that classic man versus nature conflict that you have that kind of builds throughout the movie. But again, I wish it went somewhere. I wish there were better stakes for this movie.
I will
Beyond
admit
just
that.
the loss of his job, the loss of his house.
Well, and I think it's pretty ambiguous whether he actually loses his job or not. But I love that his boss is surprisingly cool. Like, his boss is like, yeah, he's obviously going through some shit. We can give him a little bit more time on this. No big deal. And so
Right.
his secretary comes to tell him, and he's like, I don't care. I have to do this right now.
Mhm.
Fuck off, please.
Kindly fuck off.
Leave us alone, he says. Yells from the house.
Yeah, God, what a fucking weirdo.
I love that scene too, where he's completely snapped and he puts his weapon together, and his neighbor superintendent friend Cletus, he comes down and he just stands there, like, watches him put this together, and then he walks up to him, and Cletus just kind of turns and goes up the stairs.
Yep.
He's like, okay, yep, nope, okay, you're okay. I'm just gonna leave. No big deal.
He
You got
just
this.
like holds it up and's like, hey, see what I made? And Cletus is like, fuck this.
I'm out. I am
I am
out.
so far out of here.
I love that character too. I like him a lot.
I don't know that actor. Like, that's an actor I'm not super familiar with. Luis Del Grande or Del Grande.
Probably a character actor.
I mean, he's, you know
the
who
guy.
he is.
Who he is?
He is the guy from Scanners.
Oh, really?
The guy who gets his head blown up.
That is him, yeah.
That's the guy. Yeah. I just
Yeah.
put that together looking at his IMDb page.
Yeah, that's the guy.
But yeah, that's the guy. But he
Straight up clean.
didn't really do anything like super big outside of that, really. Sadly. He's in Happy Birthday to Me, of unknown origin. Does a lot of TV movies. He's in Cadillac Girls.
Dude, yeah.
You know, various episodes of various shows. But it looks like he might still be around. Hard to say. His IMDb page doesn't have a death date, so he might still be around, but hasn't really done anything since 2016.
No. I like him as this character, though.
Yeah, dude.
I think he's fun. He adds kind of a juxtaposition to while not demeaning different social classes. That's what I like about it, is that he and Peter Weller definitely speak to each other like they're peers.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very blue collar and Peter Weller's very white collar.
Right.
I appreciate their little bit of a relationship they have there, because it is inferred when he first shows up that they do know each other a bit, at least.
Right.
Like, that he helps him out
together.
Yeah.
I mean, they say he owns the place right next door, so but Weller, he's not Weller's first call and would not be Weller's first call on a normal day, and that's part of the issue. But I think his willingness to kind of, what's the word, indulge his kind of obsession with this rat, I think is what brings them together ultimately.
Yeah. And then Cleet ends up noping out at the end.
As he should.
He starts that fire. He really does. Because Peter Weller's like, hey, rats or something. No, he doesn't even say rats. He's just telling him what's happening in his house. And Homeboy's like, you sure have got a rat. And like, you got to get that motherfucker because they start breeding. And like, he fills his head with all these ideas. And that's what he stokes that fire, starts an obsession. And then at the end, he's like, what have I done? I'm out.
What hath I wrought? That's 100% what it is. What hath I wrought? And you done messed up, Aaron. Is ultimately what it comes down to. Let's do it. Let's talk Maury Chaykin.
Let's do it. I'm into it.
One of my favorite character actors. I love that guy. Plays a character named Dan Errol in this film, a co-worker of Bart's, of Peter Weller's, and Kenneth Walsh in this movie, and basically just kind of exists to talk shit.
Yeah.
But he is, God, he's one of the greats. Like, he's one of those, like, I see him and I'm immediately interested. And I think it took me a while to like clock him and recognize him, because he plays such a wide variety of characters. Like, he can play like these really scuzzy people. Like, he plays kind of a bumpkin in My Cousin Vinny, but he's a gangster in Twins. And I think I remember talking about my love for Maury Chaykin in the Twins episode. He plays a Union general or major in Dances with Wolves, like, who's going insane. Like, he's just got these roles where he plays someone really interesting, if not memorable. He's in future episode of this podcast, Devil in a Blue Dress. Future episode of this podcast, Cutthroat Island.
When I see this movie, I specifically, though I've seen some other films that he's in, the thing he stood out the most in that I've seen since of Unknown Origin is the pilot episode of the sci-fi original series Eureka. He was the original sheriff before Sheriff Carter took over.
Oh, I would have probably actually watched Eureka had he stuck around.
That's a good show, Steven.
That's what I've heard.
It's real good.
Maury Chaykin, though, is the man. He's in fucking Mouse Hunt.
Yeah, dude.
The Mask of Zorro. He's the prison warden in The Mask of Zorro.
Yeah,
a move, maybe the first thing I ever would have seen him in.
Both of those movies are really good, I think. A lot of people don't like the second one, but I think both those Zorro movies are real fucking good.
I haven't seen the second one in so long. Honestly, I haven't seen either of them in so long.
Oh, damn.
Entrapment, the Catherine Zeta-Jones, Sean Connery film. Sean Connery. And then in the early aughts, he takes on the role of Nero Wolfe in the TV show, A Nero Wolfe Mystery. Just 27 episodes as Nero Wolfe, who's this great character who just like solves mysteries while like sitting at a table eating shit, and like has people like read him like the specifics, and then he just solves the mystery like right in front of them. Like, nice. Fucking great. Like, again, he can play these highbrow and lowbrow characters with this kind of effortless ease. Now, of course, he is R.I.P., gone but not forgotten. But yeah, no, Maury Chaykin, one of the greats. I fucking love him. Was so excited to see his name in the credits, and then really bummed when he had like almost nothing to do in this movie.
Yeah, he was a side character in the side plot.
Right. So just not given a whole lot to do, but he has a better career later in life. So I can't.
He serves his purpose in this film, I will tell you that.
And he does so very well.
Yes, he do. Yeah,
with his big old cigars.
Yes. So this movie was shot in Montreal, Steven.
It was. You're right. Not Toronto.
Not Toronto. For some reason, I thought it was Toronto. And I didn't do it this time, but last time I listened to the commentary, I went on Google Maps and did a street view, and it's still there.
I believe it.
Yeah.
It's such a cool facade. Like the facade of the building, it's so unlike anything you would expect to see in a metropolitan area. And in that respect, it kind of stands out like a sore thumb.
I like that about it, though.
I do too. I think it really works well for the film. And you get the impression that this is like a house he sought out. I think you said it was like a mental institution at the time. Is that correct?
It was a rehab center.
That was what it was. Yes.
When they location scouted it, it was a drug rehab center. So they weren't able to use the interior, but they actually had like a 70,000 square foot set that they built, not only of the apartment, but all the stuff that the rat went through. Like the actual shots of the rat are all micro lens,
Mm,
but all the POV rat stuff, like going through the studs in the wall and the little tunnels and everything that's like in the wall is all just whatever the opposite of miniatures is. They built it big enough so like a whole camera rig could get through it, and then
okay.
pretended it was from the POV of the rat.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you had like it's weird knowing that and seeing the movie, and you squint and try to like be like, that's big, but it doesn't look big. Like they did a really good job of shooting this, so I believe that it's like a pinhole camera or something, you know?
Right. And that would make more sense in that time. But no, it works really well. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no, I love all that POV shit. I think that works so well. And again, that's very reminiscent of Jaws. It's where I'm kind of like, this is Moby Dick meets Jaws with a rat. Like it kind of all clicked for me in that moment. And then he's slamming Moby Dick against the ceiling. And I was like, is that a little too on the nose? Is that a little too like right there? Maybe.
Based on both the director and Peter Weller's reaction in the commentary to that part, that was purposefully that on the nose,
Okay.
kind of as a silly joke.
I mean, sure. It makes
you got
sense.
the Old Man on the Sea on TV as well.
Right. But again, you see things like that and you almost want there to be an ending. And again, I keep coming back to this, but an ending that severe where that is reminiscent of that beyond just, oh, it fucked up my house.
I will admit that the ending is it's very well. You haven't seen Idle Hands. Never mind, Steven. Figured I said that.
It's
it's
the
very...
one episode, one movie we've covered for this podcast that I have not watched.
Oh, it's so good. But
because I was in a hospital bed when that episode was recorded.
The build-up, the ending of this movie does not justify the build-up. I will admit that. As much as I love this movie, it just kind of fizzles out at the end.
And that, I think, is what kept it from being rated higher for me. And I'll get to my rating later in the episode. But that's what kept it from... It really squashed a lot of my what would have been enjoyment of this movie for me. And it left me feeling kind of empty at the end. I was just kind of like, so the fuck what?
Guess he had a party. Guess that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Cool. I guess. Good for you.
I think for me, I recognize that the ending is a little milquetoast, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
But I'm immediately
just flat for me. I don't know.
I'm immediately distracted by that negative aspect when he comes out the door and his family's there. And just once again, my imagination goes wild as the credits are rolling. Like how he said he had a party, but that's not the last he had to say on that subject.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had to tell him what happened. I would love to hear that.
Right. It's the Kevin, what did you do to my room at the end of Home Alone?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, indeed.
It's the notion that, he's gonna have to explain that he's gonna have to account for himself.
Got some straight up splaining to do.
That's it. Lucy got some splaining to do.
Lucille, girl,
you
got some splaining to do.
There's some splaining. It's got to be done. You got to be the one to do it, I'm afraid.
Yes. No, I will admit that the ending is definitely lackluster, but for me, it does not. It doesn't. I get to where it kind of ruins all the goodwill that this film has sowed for you, Stephen. I totally understand that because that happens. That's happened for me on other films for sure. Mm-hmm. but with this film, there's so much more that I like about it that it's barely an issue for me. But I definitely know what you're talking about, and that is valid, and I straight up respect it. Yeah.
I'm looking at his IMDb page right now. Maury Chaykin died on his birthday. Died on his 61st birthday.
Yeah, well, it'd be like that sometimes.
The only other person I can think of that happened to is Shakespeare.
I'm sure it's happened to other people, Stephen.
I'm sure it has too, but that's the only one I can think of. Tucker.
Gotcha. Copy that. Gotcha. Sorry. Oh, no. My head's cold. I couldn't figure out if I was having the chills or it was a hot flash. I'm still not sure, but we'll figure it out, whatever.
Just take a
I
shot.
got my long
whiskey,
undie
you'll be
pant.
fine.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. I got my long undie pants shirt on, and I'm wearing my long undie pants because I can handle, like when I'm sick, I can handle hot flashes, but the chills, fuck you. Like I'm never more uncomfortable than I am when I have the chills when I'm sick.
I'm such a wimp, I can't handle either. So I'm like constantly taking things off and putting things back on. It's awful.
Oh my god. I need simultaneously more and less blankets. Yeah, that's me when I'm sick.
Oof.
That was me last night. It was either no blankets or I'm freezing my dick off.
Yep. Again, man, your poor dick just falling off constantly.
Detachable penis.
Coughing it off, freezing it off.
King Missile, anybody?
Just can't keep that damn thing on, can you?
I can't. I'm sorry. I am going to have a shot of whiskey, though.
Good. I hope you do. I want you to. That's why I told you to do it.
Because you know what? A lot of people drink, what's that called? When they're sick, they drink a hot toddy.
Hot toddy. I fucking love a hot toddy.
And that has whiskey in it.
It does.
And I'm sure whiskey's probably the healthiest part of it. So that's why I'm just going directly to the whiskey.
It's whiskey, water, lemon juice, and honey. Like hot water.
And it's fantastic.
And it's fucking great. Honestly, I was cold during a podcast a couple weeks ago, and I just fucking made me one of those. I wasn't sick or anything. I just was cold. And so I made a hot toddy, and holy shit. Yes, that was great. I loved it.
So if something makes you feel better when you're sick, imagine how good you'll feel when you're not sick and you drink one.
I don't know why we save certain foods for when we're sick, like hot toddies and chicken noodle
Gatorade.
soup. Like they're great. Fucking Gatorade. I can't do Gatorade anymore. The sodium's too high. But yeah,
I can't drink Gatorade without like coming to mind like being sick. So Powerade, fine. Do you remember All Sport, Steven?
All Sport. The game got too easy.
All Sport was a carbonated sports drink.
I remember.
Came in a glass bottle. It actually so did Gatorade in those days.
Yep.
Glass bottles of Gatorade.
I remember. I absolutely remember, man.
Much more recyclable than plastic glasses.
Yep.
And not made from fossil fuels. So there's that.
There is that.
I remember when I was a kid, we would get the glass bottles of Pepsi and like the 6-packs. And every time we would go to the grocery store, we would bring a rack of those back and just put them on a little roller.
Bring back a rack?
Yeah. And it wasn't even a recycling program. Those went directly back to the regional bottler. They cleaned them and put more fucking Pepsi in them and sent them on their way. And guess what? There wasn't a bunch of plastic in the ocean back then either. Just saying. Now, there were other forms of pollution that were running rampant in those days, but
correct.
As far as plastic goes, it wasn't so bad. But anyway, of unknown origin, Steven, I'm sorry that the ending kind of ruins it for you. That's sad news, but I'm glad you enjoyed the parts that you did.
I did, and I mean, I'm kind of middling on this movie. Spoilers for my ranking later. But I can see why people enjoy it. Obviously, I had some other reasons to not enjoy it as well, which I spoke on briefly earlier. But yeah,
also it's sexist.
I mean, yes. But also it was the 80s and everyone was.
Yeah, and it's not
not for nothing, but yes.
It's not sexist in a way to where you'll be like, holy fuck, that's sexist. It's more
Right.
like, oh damn, that's kind of sexist. Well, that's just a
Mhm.
little, that's kind of, well, sign of the times, I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, man,
yeah.
dude,
That's
yeah.
just how it was in those days. I want to share a little bit of trivia that I learned about this film from the commentary. Is that the reason that his secretary takes off her shoes when she comes into the house
I read this
is
online. Yeah.
because she could not stand to have the fucking heels on anymore.
Yeah.
She's I'm making this part of it, and you're not gonna say anything. This is how we're doing it.
And every foot fetishist in the world went, yeah.
Okay, yes, we are on board.
100%. Yes,
Yeah, dude.
please.
I love the pan up to him sitting on those steps too, in the
Mm-hmm.
Scully cap, and he's just all dressed in black, and he's got like the cleats on. Just an unhinged man.
Yeah. Unmoored from reality. Like, and again, like it had it built to something. Yeah. I don't know. There needed to be one fatality in this movie. Just give me one. Could have been Cleet, could have been the secretary, could have been the kid. I mean, I understand, but like, give me like a fatality. Give me some fucking stakes, man.
I mean, you've got the cat, and as sad as that is, and upsetting as it
It's
is,
very upsetting.
though it's made less upsetting to me because of how kind of awful and unrealistic the dead cat looks. But my imagination up to that point, I love the way that's shot too, because they don't show anything.
Right.
They don't show any. They show you right up to them meeting and the aftermath, which I thought was brilliant. He's pouring milk, and it gets me every fucking time. I'm like,
So
oh,
gross.
oh shit.
It's so
Yes.
fucking gross.
But I love the shots leading up to that, those close-ups of like the cat in the profile, and
Mhm.
it's just so beautifully shot. And it
It
is
is.
almost like
It's almost a split
nature photography.
diopter kind of thing, like where you've got
They
the
do
cat,
that
or you've
several
got the
times
rat
with
in
the
the
rat.
foreground, the cat in the background. Like, yeah,
Mhm. They do that a lot with the rat, not just with the cat. Basically, anytime that you see him like crawling on something, it's almost like a split shot.
right.
And I wonder if sometimes it's meant to look like a split shot, and if other times it's meant to, like in the scene with the cat, it's supposed to be a perspective shot.
Right.
Ambiguous cinematography. I'm a big fan of it. Big
Yeah.
fan. Big fan.
Again, there are a lot of things that are really that make this film very dynamic and very interesting. But then again, I just can't get past the ending. I'm sorry. I hate to
I get
keep
it.
beating that drum. I will stop. But yeah, it really does just kind of deflate the whole experience for me, I'm afraid.
Yeah. That's too bad.
It
That's too
is.
bad.
It is. I wanted to love this movie as much as you did.
If
But
it's any consolation to you, Stephen, according to the director of this film, the main point of this film was to break this man down psychologically, turn him into like a primal being, sort of man versus beast sort of thing.
right.
And I don't
Like,
know if
who's
they
the
were
real beast?
approaching it. I don't know if they were approaching it in a way to where they needed to be that kind of stakes, but I understand your desire for that. That's
Right.
what I'm saying.
But I don't think in that regard, then I don't think the film is overall successful in
Okay.
in getting to that point, because again, the stakes are so
Well, and for me, the fantasies that he has about the birthday party and them coming home, to me, that shows me how bad that can be. Again, it puts it in my imagination. It doesn't have to actually happen. Like, just thinking about what's going to happen. Like, I don't want to actually see that happen. So, like, for
sure.
me, I'm glad everybody comes out alive except the cat. R.I.P.
Right. But then at no point does that alter his behavior. Like, you would expect that, oh, I've had these terrible dreams about what this obsession is going to do to me. At no point does he stop. And so I want to see him carry that through to its tragic conclusion.
Well, no, and
Because I
the
think the
well,
film is pointing us in that direction, and the fact that it doesn't give us that climax, it doesn't give us that, for lack of a better word, kind of orgasmic moment, like where we reach that moment where everything kind of comes to a head, and you witness him doing the horrible thing that he's been fearing he's going to do the whole time. I don't know, it's kind of blue ball. It kind of blue balls for me.
I understand that perspective, but I see it a little differently. I see it as a movie of deadlines. Like, he has to, because of these dreams that he's having of what could happen to his kid and wife if they get home while this rat is still in the house. I feel like that motivates him even more to get this done. It drives him. He's got his work deadline, and then he's got, I got to kill this motherfucking rat before my kid gets home and something happens to him deadline.
He only hits one of them, and honestly, I think it might be the wrong one.
Yeah, well. I don't know, man. I do think that he kind of gave up on the exterminator a little too quick. I mean, you could have just like went to the place and given them the check and said, "Sorry, come
Right.
take care of this motherfucker because holy
Exactly.
shit."
Or, leave it outside the apartment, or like leave it in an envelope, like under the
But
mat outside or
but
something.
Steven, then you wouldn't have a movie. Then the movie couldn't happen. It'd be a half hour long. Who wants that? It's a
A really good episode of television is what that is.
Yeah. I think this is the perfect film for Peter Weller to have his first starring role in, because everything that's outside of basically everything that's in the house is just him. He's got to do some very Castaway kind of acting. He's just acting with himself in 90% of this movie.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he's really good at it. Like, that's
He
what
is.
makes this character so empathetic, because he's not a bad person. He's not a good person. He's all right, I guess.
I mean,
He's
he's
kind
an
of a
investment
shithead.
banker. He can't be a good person.
Yeah, he's kind of a shithead, but he's not like a terrible fucking person. But still, like, he's not a character that I identify with in any way.
No.
But it's when you get those scenes with him by himself and he's talking to himself, that's when you can empathize, because you're like, if I were in that situation and it were just me, I would probably be having full dialogues with myself about this shit.
Right.
And just all that stuff that he does by himself is just so realistic and relatable, that the fact that the character isn't that great of a person, he's still relatable. And I think that's difficult to pull off in any situation.
This movie definitely gives us a good look at his range as an actor, which is nice. And I texted you this last night as I was watching the movie. Like, in another universe, this feels like a RoboCop origin story. Like a man driven to obsession by a rat. Something bad happens to him, and he gets reconstructed as a fucking robot.
He would be the ex-Terminator.
There it is.
Pew pew pew.
Dead or alive, you're getting in the rat trap. Like,
yeah.
And of course, his very next theatrically released film, Tucker. Do you know this? You heard about this?
No,
What
is it? What is it?
The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension.
Yeah. They saw this movie and they were like, yeah, this guy can play very understated.
This guy can play half Japanese. I mean, understated.
Yes. He could play a jack of all trades, a modern day Renaissance man, if you will. Much like Pootie Tang. Modern day Renaissance man. That's a good double feature right there, I tell you what. You're going to want to watch Pootie Tang first, though.
Pootie don't need words. Pootie don't even need music.
Yeah. Have you seen this? Did I show you this? My birthday gift?
You did. You showed us that on the Disenfranchised episode that we recorded for Patreon. Patreon.com/Disenfranchised. The great irony is that the thing you announced on that episode didn't actually happen, and it is going to happen on the date of the release of this episode.
Yeah.
That's the great irony there.
That is the great irony. Watch my Instagram. I'll probably post something.
And also check out that episode, Disenfranchised, where we rank our favorite Ghostbusters films. I will tell you some surprise. I was thrown for a fucking loop. You guys fucking ambushed me. How fucking dare you?
What? What are you talking about? I thought we had fun.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
We quoted it a lot.
No, we did have fun. But you guys fucking ambushed me.
No, I felt like I did a good job moderating. I was able to relate with both, but I was able to stay right there in the middle so that y'all didn't kill each other.
There was no danger of that happening, but
I was the calm little center of the universe, Steven.
okay,
That's me.
that's you.
Anyway,
Anyway, of unknown origin. What else you got to say, Tucker? I think
bum
I've
bum
said my
bum
piece
bum
on this
bum
movie.
bum 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 bum. I really like this movie. I like everything about this movie. I think, even though I will admit I understand why the ending does not work for some,
I
and why that ending not working kind of ruins the rest of the film. I get that, but that is not my personal perspective. And I happen to love every single thing about this movie. And it's one I watch pretty often. I'd say maybe every 3 to 6 months I'll watch it, which is I'm glad that I have the Blu-ray now, so I can do that. I've only had this for about 2 years, so it has gotten some heavy rotation though in those 2 years. It's really good. I think for a $3 rental, whether you think you're gonna agree with me or Steven, it's worth $3.
it
The
is.
good
I
the
will say
good
it's
stuff
worth
about it,
$3.
like
Yeah,
it's worth seeing. Whether you end up liking it or not, it's an experience that I don't think that you will forget. It's a very unique film, stands out for me, especially in that era of what was being done with horror and thrillers and action films and monster movies and stuff like that, and creepy crawlies. And it's a nice little outlier, just a quiet little dude goes insane trying to defend his house movie. Plot simple as fuck. Who cares? Just watch Peter Weller go gradually more and more obsessed and insane.
yeah, absolutely,
A tour de
absolutely.
force performance, if you will.
It's a good first performance for sure.
Yeah, dude. I mean, he
Yeah,
was in other stuff. This was just his first leading
sure.
performance.
I mean, you know what I mean. You know what I
Yeah.
meant.
I'm just clarifying for the listeners, just in
Sure, sure,
case.
sure, 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 sure.
Oh,
I'm
God.
working on trying to do some conversion here, but Google's not cooperating me.
What are you converting? Boy, I'm sweating.
Canadian dollars from 1983 to American dollars from 1983.
Oh, because they had that little pre-release in Canada.
Correct.
That's
And
true.
the film's budget is listed on Wikipedia in Canadian dollars.
Oh,
So trying
boo.
to,
And you've
but the
got
box office,
inflation and
but
exchange rate changes,
correct. So
fluctuations.
the box office is listed in Canadian dollars, or the box office is listed in American dollars, but the budget is in Canadian.
Yeah, dude.
So, I mean, if we can assume the exchange rate is lower for Canadian than American, then we can kind
Well,
of give an idea as to,
Canadian stuff is more expensive.
oh, is that what it is?
Historically, yeah. You ever looked at the back of a comic book? It's like US $1.99, Canada $3.50.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Let me see here. Yeah, and see, all of them don't, like, most of them have like the British pound or yen or like the francs or marks, but they don't have the Canadian exchange rate in 1983.
Most that you just mentioned replaced by the euro.
Correct. Correct.
It was funny when I was an exchange student in Germany, it was marks, and then I was there like 2 years later as a resident of Germany, and it was euros.
Right.
Just that quickly, it all changed.
It all changes. It all changes so quickly.
Yeah, dude, yeah,
Dude, yeah.
yeah, dude.
I mean, yeah, I could do the exchange rate for today, but that doesn't really help me at all.
No,
Hang on. So a
oh, he's doing
Canadian
it.
in 83, $1 American dollar 1 Canadian dollar is worth 81 American cents. So
Yeah, that's about right.
hang on,
Sounds about right.
let me do some quick math here.
When
I'm gonna figure this out.
the 2 years I was in Germany, the exchange rate stayed pretty steady at about 87 cents.
All right.
87 cents to the €1.
So the budget of this film in American currency is $3.24 million, give or take. The movie releases on November 25th, 1983, just in time for my very first Thanksgiving as a human being on this planet.
Hooray!
It opens at number 17 at the box office, the lowest new opener of the week. And it on a budget of 4 million Canadian or 3.25 American million, makes a domestic box office budget of 1.08 million. So not a good performer at the box office. The week it comes out, in its second weekend, up from number 3 the week before, a little movie filmed in our home state of Indiana, Tucker, called A Christmas Story is number 1 at the box office that weekend. Second place, brand new at the box office, the eventual Oscar winner for 1983, a little movie by James L. Brooks called Terms of Endearment.
Yeah.
A movie I own but have not seen.
Wow.
In third place, a film by Lawrence Kasdan called The Big Chill.
Oh, okay. You're just gonna casually drop The Big Chill there, Steven.
Yep.
Just some movie called The Big Chill. Moving on. Like,
I mean, I told you this was going to be a good box office. Like before we started recording,
wow.
Like, this is a good box office.
You didn't have a chance of Unknown Origin. You didn't have a chance.
No.
It's not your fault.
I mean, Mr. Mom is at number 15.
Hey, I like that movie too.
I mean, good. In fourth place, James Bond in Never Say Never Again, the oft forgotten non-Eon James Bond movie, Connery's last outing as the character.
I was yawning for real and in response to just mentioning James Bond.
Down from first place the week before, in fifth place in its second week, Amityville 3D. Yes.
That's what the cover looks like. I don't know if you've seen it.
You're doing the hand, yeah. No,
it's a monster hand. Bat. Yeah. Just like that. Straight biggity bat.
Rounding out the top 10, you've got The Smurfs and the Magic Flute in sixth place, a movie that came out in... No.
That
is a children... I know how you feel about sexualization of children's characters, Tucker.
I wouldn't be surprised. Hey, Alvin and the Chipmunks movie, like, that's all I have to go by, so The Smurfs was probably, like, disgusting as well.
That movie came out in 1976 in Belgium. It took that long for the American release. That movie came out 8 weeks prior. Days. It was. In seventh place, Tom Cruise and Leah Thompson, the aforementioned Leah Thompson in All the Right Moves.
Yeah, dude. It's where you can see his wiener if you pause it just right.
If you pause it just right.
According to Tatum.
Yeah. You can see his wang, and you definitely see a decent amount of Leah Thompson as well.
A decent amount of her wang as well. Big old floppy Leah Thompson wang.
Better than that corkscrew wang that we get from getting Howard the Duck.
Yeah, dude.
Heyo. Keep bringing that up. That's fun.
Why don't I like that movie?
I don't know. You should. I like that movie better than you do, and that's weird.
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't. In eighth place, A Night in Heaven. In ninth place, The Right Stuff. And
No,
and in 10th place, Richard Pryor, Here and Now, the comedy stand-up film, in its fifth week has already gained $15 million. So
understandable.
There you go. In Unknown Origin, loses out to Deal of the Century, the one of the worst William Friedkin movies, in its fourth week. Mr. Mom in 15th place, and Never Cry Wolf in 14th. David Cronenberg's The Dead Zone in 13th place after 6 weeks in the box office.
Was Christopher Walken in that?
He was, and he's very good in it.
Yeah. I
That's a
always get
good
that mixed
movie.
up with what's that series that he
Anthony
did?
Michael Hall.
No, not the TV series The Dark Zone. I'm talking about the film franchise, the horror film franchise that Christopher Walken did, The Prophecy.
The Prophecy, yes.
I always get those two mixed up, even though they're not really that similar. I mean, kind of.
No, they're
You
not.
could draw comparisons, but it would be a stretch.
Right. It's a stretch that you're drawing the comparisons now, quite frankly. The tomatometer score on this one is a 63%. No critics consensus on this one. That's wild. So there you go. The meta score is a 51 based on mixed or average reviews from 4 critics, just 4 critics. And Tucker, want to take a stab at that Letterboxd score?
The litter box. I'm gonna start calling it litter box because that's pretty much what it is. I'm gonna say the litter box score is between 2.8 and 3.3.
You almost missed it. 3.2.
Nice.
So
I knew it'd be
close.
hovering right around 3 because this is I think it's a polarizing film. It's one that you either really like or you really are just turned off by. So that makes it really ripe for meme reviews. So
It's
I figured it would get kind of
kind of
annoying.
a quintessential Gentleman 6 in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Friend of the show. No, I'm not going to say that. Never mind.
Nope.
Cut that out.
Cut that out.
But yeah, that is those are the Letterboxd rank. Tucker, out of 5 stars, how do you rate 1983's Of Unknown Origin?
This has always been for me a 3 or a 3.5 until I got this Blu-ray and listened to the commentary a couple times. And usually with movies I already like pretty well. Listening to the commentary makes me like them more because maybe there's some things I won't notice, or maybe there's some parts where the movie's just a little bit smarter than me and I don't really get what it's trying to do. And when you have a good commentary with a director like the director of this film, who is in this commentary, he gives you the intention of pretty much every scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Peter Weller kind of commenting on how they worked together to create this character and like how to figure out where he was at every point in this film. And they shot it in sequence, mainly because they could destroy the set and not have to put it back together.
Right.
But Peter Weller said that helped him and the director, George, what's how do you say it?
George P. Cosmatos.
Cosmatos. It's so easy to say. I don't know why. So the two of them kind of had a lot of fun figuring out where this guy was in each scene, like as far as mental stability. And I don't know, listening to stuff like that kind of makes the film better for me, even when I watch it without the commentary, because I see some of the purpose and some of the intent, and it makes me enjoy it a little bit more. So this is a solid 4 for me.
And it's a 2.5 for me. Like,
That's
again,
fair.
I appreciate what I do about it, and the rest of it kind of leaves me a little cold. So, I mean, that gives us an aggregate score of about 3.25, which feels about right.
Which ain't bad.
Not bad. We've definitely scored some films worse. So,
because it's not a bad movie. Even if you don't like it, it's not it's a very well-made movie. Very artistically shot, like beautiful, like it's a piece of craftsmanship is what it is.
It is something. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
So there we go.
Aside in some points.
Right. Yes. Now we will come back, of course, to George Cosmatos in our Leviathan episode, future episode coming forth. And of course we'll revisit. I'm sure at some point we'll get Peter Weller again.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We can't stay away from him.
He shows up when you least expect him.
He's actually in Leviathan, so there we go. We'll cover him there.
I have not seen. No, I have seen Leviathan.
I have not. He's also in the made-for-TV version of the Poseidon Adventure.
Oh boy. Or I mean, oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh boy. And that
are we is our Naked Lunch? No, unless I do
No,
it on Straight Up, which I
unless you
like
do
it,
it
but
straight up.
it's pretty well known.
I mean,
It's
it's a
kind of a
David
cult classic.
Cronenberg film, so yes, it
It's
absolutely
William
is
S.
very
Burroughs' book, so those two weirdos together, like you get a collection of
exactly.
weirdos that you can't beat with a bat. There's
Nope,
so many.
nope, nope. But yeah, there we go. That is our episode. That is our final episode of our 5th annual Spooky-thon
Dude, yeah, that's
and
it.
our 5th ever Straight Up. So all the 5s converging on this episode. Join us next week. We have a guest scheduled, a returning guest. I am actually very much looking forward to recording that episode.
Me too.
Girl, same.
I don't know what this fucking movie is though. You keep saying it, but I've never heard of it. What the fuck is this shit we're watching next?
I check it out. I don't know.
What
See,
the
I
fuck?
remember seeing the
What
ads
the
for it.
fuck is this shit?
The fuck is this shit?
Camille
So
who?
So we're coming at you next week. We're gonna have a good time. But
Oh,
until
that guy from that
then,
other movie's in it though.
yes, he is, and that girl from that other movie is also in it too.
From yeah.
Don't
Remember
say
when
it.
he
She'll
was
have to
in?
beep it out.
Oh, okay. Anyway, you were closing out the episode.
I was
with our
trying.
socials, I believe.
I was trying. We are the Disenfranchised Podcast. Feel free to follow us on social media. Make sure that you do that. We're at Disenfranchised Pod on socials. Write us an email, disenfranchisepod@gmail.com. Write us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcast, especially if that is Spotify or not Letterboxd, Apple Podcasts. That's going to help us find more people like you. Head on over to or the Patreon for Disenfranchised, patreon.com/disenfranchisepod. Listen to our Halloween spectacular episode on our Ghostbusters ranking, our Disenfranchised ranking of the Ghostbusters films. And while you're out there doing it, you join the official conversation of the Disenfranchised Podcast. We drop every episode of the main feed on that feed for free so that you and I and Tucker can all talk with each other. It's a good conversation.
That's how you knew I was sick. We got a comment yesterday and you replied before I did.
I did. That's true. That's how you know. I 100% did reply to that comment from past and future guest Andrew Greetings. Love that guy. That guy's a good guy.
Dude, yeah.
Dude, yeah.
Yes, dude.
But yeah, do that. You follow me on social media. I'm at Chewy Walrus on certain platforms. Some I use more than others. Figure it out. Brett, our co-host Brett Wright, occasionally posts on Instagram, but mostly on Letterboxd. It's sus_warlock.
What was he doing this week? Did I miss that?
The Halloween costume. He posted his
You always say a thing that has to do with the movie about why he's not here. Did you do that?
I
missed
didn't.
It?
No, I completely didn't do that.
What's he been doing this week, Steven, instead of being here?
Well, he's I hear he's got a bit of a rodent infestation that he's trying to take care of.
Yeah, dude. Okay, there you go.
So there you go. Oh. And Tucker, what about you?
I'm as always, I'm on Instagram and YouTube. Excuse me, at Ice909. That's ICENINE, the number 0 and the number 9. Also, there's a Tuck Mugs. That's Tuck_Mugs. Somebody said they were gonna do a spooky mug, and
today, the day this drops, there will be a.
Okay.
I believe the social media manager intimated to me the intention of posting all the spooky themed mugs that have appeared on Tuck Mugs over the years.
Oh, I like that. That's a good idea. Yeah, I remember you said something about it last week, and I couldn't remember what you said.
The social media manager, you mean?
Because the fever has burned those memories out of my brain.
Correct. As it is wont to do.
As it do. It do be doing that sometimes.
It do be like that sometimes.
But Tuck Mugs is the shit. Tuck_Mugs. It's a whole thing. It's a whole Instagram page just of mugs.
Yeah.
And cool little stories about how they came to be and what's in them. And guest mugs. You got a guest mug? Send it to us.
Send it.
Go to Tuck_Mugs. Check out the
Tuck_Mugs.
format. It's
Check it out.
pretty easy to follow. Look at a
Easy.
couple posts. You'll get it.
You'll get it.
You can either send it to us as a DM on Instagrams, or you can email us at the aforementioned email address, disenfranchpod@gmail.com.
That's it.
And
That's
my
absolutely it.
socials. That's the shortest Tuck Mugs plug ever.
That's how you know he's sick, people, is
That's how you
that
know I'm sick.
is the Tuck Mugs plug you get. And that is the episode. I'm drunk, he's sick. We're ending it now. We're getting out while we
Yay.
can. Thank you so much for joining. Seriously, thank you for listening. I'm not sure why you do, particularly when we give you episodes like this.
I love this movie, Steven.
No,
and I
this
had
is-
insightful things to say about it. I
No,
thought
this-
that I brought my case forward very eloquently, and I was
You
well
did.
spoken.
This is a very good episode. The last few minutes have been a mess. That's all I'm saying.
I'm running out of steam. That's all it is.
That's and I'm running out of sobriety.
I'm turning into a puddle of sweat right now, Steven.
I get it. So, hey, friends, thank you so much for joining us. Join us again next week. We're coming into November. We've got a couple of fun guests planned for November, and also a kind of a mini series within the month, like right in the middle of the month. We got a fun little mini series that we're doing. So it's going to be a good time. We hope to see you there. And this has been the Disenfranchised Podcast for my co-host Tucker and the absent Brett Wright. Until next time, man, fuck that rat.
Leave us alone.